Everybody, welcome to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Welcome to a great Thursday edition of the show. I'm currently looking up patrons who are people who support the show. I do want to give some patron shout-outs when I get that up. But hey, man, welcome. Got a great show for you guys today. A lot of interesting stories. We got some, breaking news on more sexual assault allegations. This time from a very well-known veteran journalist. We have that. Boy, that's an amazing story. Again, and it's great to see all these women coming out and detailing sexual assault. But that's what, like I said, that's one of the stories that we have. We also have Donald Trump. I think he's being unfairly cast as stupid in the media. That's fun. Then we have John Kelly. If you didn't know that by now, John Kelly's a terrible person. I'm going to break down why. Then we have ICE agents going after 10-year-olds that happen to have disabilities. Mark Halperin, as I said. Oops, I kind of gave that away. Lindsey Graham on basically admitting why the Republicans haven't spoke up against Donald Trump, like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker had. And then the FCC charting disastrous course for media consolidation. Oh boy, you're going to want to stick around for that story. Disastrous things to come. So that's what we've got for you today. Let me tell you how you can help the show. Especially now that all that disastrous media consolidation is coming, as well as to a possible end of net neutrality. That's also coming. So buckle up. It's going to be rough. Now, here's how you can help the show. First off, you can give us a like and a share. If you haven't already, that helps out tremendously. So please spread the show around, share it. And like I said, it's one of the best helps that you can give us. So like and share, please, the stream and the videos that we put up throughout the day. As far as other ways you can help, patreon.com/TYTNation. That's how you can help out the show by funding us directly, so we stay accountable to you guys and not advertisers or anything like that. So patreon.com/TYTNation. To the patrons that I do want to give a shout out to and a big thanks is Dan Snowden and Harold Honeywell. So Dan, Harold, thank you so much for supporting independent progressive media. The show could not exist without people like you. Now, other ways, like I said, you can do super chat, which is also a very effective way of helping the show, and it gets your comments elevated, and just sharing us on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere that you can find us. All right, so that's all that stuff. Let's go in. Let's start our first story. We're gonna have a little bit of fun before we dive into some of the more disastrous things. All right. Now, President Trump believes that the media has it very, very wrong about him. They're not seeing the real Donald Trump. They're not seeing the man who is incredibly well-educated and very, very smart. In fact, earlier today, he had this interview where he talked about the media. Let's watch.
Makes me more uncivil than I am. People don't understand. I went to an Ivy League college. I was a nice student. I did very well. I'm a very intelligent person. The fact is, I really believe the press creates a different image of Donald Trump than the real person.
The media, going after Donald Trump making him look like he's stupid or something, which he guarantees that he is not stupid. In fact, he's very, very smart.
And then they say, "Is Donald Trump an intellectual?" Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
He's like a smart person. In fact,
You know, I'm like a smart person.
yeah, he's totally a smart person. So media, lay off, man. You got to lay off Donald Trump. He's actually super incredibly smart because he went to an Ivy League school. Now, it's funny is that people who are really, really intelligent usually don't have to go on television and talk about how smart they are. But okay, look, yeah, it's true. He did go to an Ivy League school. This is Wharton Business School, a very prestigious school. In fact, they have a little bit of an image problem of being a little too prestigious. A lot of people tend to go from Wharton to Wall Street. So that makes a lot of younger people, such as myself, people younger than I am, a millennial generation, we're kind of staying away from those business schools because, well, you don't want to be associated with Wall Street and their reckless greed. So, but anyway, like I said, going to an Ivy League school doesn't necessarily it doesn't make you smart, okay? I mean, for one, there is this little thing called legacy admissions. That's how you actually get in there. Many people think that, no, you actually have to be smart to get in these schools. No, you don't. You either have to know somebody who went to that school before, legacy admissions, as I said, or be super, super rich and just buy your way in. And that's the sad truth. I mean, do you think George W. Bush was smart? The guy went to both Yale and Harvard, and he could hardly string two sentences together. So that dude was, I'm sorry, he was not smart. But he did have money and he had a lot of political connections. Now, some of you might be thinking, come on, you're still being incredibly unfair. Especially since we don't know Donald Trump's grades. We don't know what he actually got in those business classes. He might have done really, really well. Well, we don't know because he never released his transcripts. Oddly enough, that was something a lot of right-wingers were trying to get President Obama to release. Release your college transcripts. Because they didn't believe a black guy could actually do well in college. The racism is unbounded. There are no bounds to it. But going back to Donald Trump. Well, since we don't know his grades, yes, but we do know what at least one of his professors thought. Earlier this year, one of Trump's former college professors. It was revealed that he had once spoken out about the kind of student Donald Trump was. Okay. Now, this is the late Professor William T. Kelly. Now, he taught marketing at Wharton School of Business and Finance in Pennsylvania for 31 years until he retired in 1982. Now, Kelly also happened to be a business consultant and an author of a widely used textbook called Marketing Intelligence, the Management of Marketing Information. So this guy apparently knows what he's doing. He was very well respected and very intelligent. And here comes Donald Trump, who was an undergrad student at Wharton for the latter of his college years, having graduated in 1968. We know because that was around the time that he had been getting deferments from Vietnam for his education. And then later on went on to say, oh, I've got bone spurs in my feet. I can't go to Vietnam, I got bone spurs. And then later on, described his own personal Vietnam as avoiding VD. Gotta be kidding me. But, okay. So, he goes to this school and under this professor, William Kelly. And so, what did Kelly have to say about him? Well, according to a good friend, Frank DePremia, Professor Kelly told me 100 times over 3 decades that Donald Trump was the dumbest goddamn student I ever had. And he says, I remember his inflection and emphasis. It went like this. Donald Trump was the dumbest goddamn student I ever had. Damn. Now, Kelly told him this after Trump had become a celebrity, but wasn't actually in politics. Now, Kelly often referred to Trump's arrogance when he told the story that Trump came to Wharton thinking he basically knew everything. That sounds about familiar. Trump's still the same after all these years thinking, oh, trust me, I know everything. I'm super smart. In fact, this is Trump now.
I'm smart. I'm like like everybody says. Like dumb, I'm smart, and I want respect.
Okay. Nobody's as smart as Donald Trump, and I'm just not getting the respect for it. And that's what that video was about. I've got a tremendous brain. Nobody's smart. Nobody can match Donald Trump's brain. But anyway, look. I know that there are some people on the left that are like, hey, let's be fair. Donald Trump's probably mentally impaired. Actually, I do believe that he's always been this stupid. And he's at least certainly had this attitude, even if he wasn't dumb. Now, there's another biographer, Gwenda Blair, who wrote in 2001 that Trump was admitted to Wharton on a special favor from a friendly admissions officer. The officer had known Trump's older brother, Freddie. So look, again, he didn't have to be smart to get into Wharton. But he has to know somebody, a legacy admission. Now, according to his former classmates, he did not excel when he was in school. According to Steve Perelman, a 1968 Wharton classmate and a former Daily Pennsylvania news editor, said he was not in any kind of leadership. I certainly doubt he was the smartest guy in the class. Okay. Hey, not the smartest doesn't necessarily mean dumb. Even though I would definitely go with dumb. Some classmates also speculated that Trump skipped class, others that he commuted to New York on weekends. 1968 Wharton graduate Louis Calamaris recalled that Don, quote, was loath to really study much. He said that Trump would come to study groups unprepared and did not seem to care about being prepared. Well, why would you want to study and be prepared for stuff that you already know? I mean, come on, I already know everything. Why do I need to study? Why do I need to prepare? No, I got everything that I need because I'm Donald Trump with my fantastic brain. This is a guy, by the way, look, you have all, in school, I'm sure you've all been in that group with that one person that's either never there or when they're there, they don't actually do anything. And then later on, try to get the credit. That's Donald Trump. We've all had those group partners before. He's not like a smart person and apparently not even a good student. And so everything about this person is a lie, everything that he says. But we already knew he was painfully stupid. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess he's right that the media is mean for calling him, for basically pointing out that he is stupid. But I guess sometimes the truth just hurts. Sad. Okay. So let's go to something more serious. How terrible John Kelly is. Now, when John Kelly replaced Reince Priebus as Trump's chief of staff, I think I and a lot of other people thought, oh, okay, hey, man, look, you've got somebody there who's a general. He's going to instill a little bit of discipline into the White House and maybe prevent Trump from doing some of the stupidest things, right? Like shooting a nuke off at North Korea or something ridiculous, right? Now, as I said, I was relieved, and I even had a little bit of respect for John Kelly for trying to stand up to Donald Trump and trying to make, I guess, order out of chaos, right? Well, that little bit of respect is now gone, has been gone for a while. First off, it went away because he was no longer a non-political figure. And you guys remember when he went after Frederica Wilson over the call to Maisha Johnson. That is the widow of the veteran Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, who was killed in an ambush in Niger. He called her, and it was a very disrespectful call. And so Frederica Wilson, who just happened to be there, who was very close to the family, who had heard that call over the loudspeaker, was basically went on TV and was like, hey, that's disrespectful. Like, you could do a lot better. Well, during that whole fiasco, John Kelly comes out, trots out his dead son, which is just horrendous. And he's like, hey, Wilson, you're a liar. That's not what happened. Now, There's actually proof that he was lying about Frederica Wilson, and you guys can look that up. But so that's one of the that's like the first part where he lost a lot of respect, not just from me, but from a lot of other people when he had shamelessly went out to defend Donald Trump. But now it actually gets worse, as now we know a little bit more about John Kelly's positions on policies, and this is actually about refugees. Now, according to the New York Times, Kelly reportedly told other members of the Trump administration that the number of refugees that he would admit if he were in charge was actually really, really low. So if John Kelly were in charge, he'd be like, I would cut down on refugees immediately. Even more so than what the Trump administration is actually at, which is that right now it's at incredibly low levels. Okay. How many? He said that he would admit, ideally, between 0 and 1 refugees each year, if it were up to him. Kelly apparently made the comment while the administration debated lowering the cap on the number of refugees allowed in the country, which is about 45,000. Between 0 and 1. Hey, refugees. If you're running from ISIS or natural disasters, John Kelly has a message for you. Fuck off. That's what he's telling you, man. Look, if you're unlucky enough to be born in a country that gets hit with a natural disaster or even a man-made disaster, such as a conflict, and you want to escape and, God forbid, make a better life for you and your family, well, John Kelly says, no, absolutely not. If I were in charge, I wouldn't allow you to do it at all. You're on your own, bitch. Look, Kelly is a loathsome human being. And now we realize exactly why Donald Trump picked him to be in his cabinet. Now, look, I'm not saying that we should allow every single refugee into the country with no questions asked. That's ridiculous. That's never been our position. That's not even a real position that people hold. There are limits, and there should be some limits, and they should be based ideally on how many people we can actually help. And yes, they should be vetted, right? And look, even before Trump, we had an amazing vetting system that it took about 18 months, at least, for somebody to get through the vetting process to even step foot in America. So, yes, and that was during the Obama administration. Under the Trump administration, I don't even know how long it's going to take for refugees to get vetted, if we're even allowing them into the country at this point. But anyway, what Kelly wants to do is basically close ourselves off. And in my opinion, that is not only immoral, but it's actually bad for the country. And look, while there is a big upfront cost to taking in refugees, and conservatives love to remind us of that, refugees are actually good for the economy in the long run. And let me cite you some statistics here. Refugees to Southeast Michigan contributed as much as $295 million to the region's economy and created as many as 2,300 jobs last year, according to a study by Global Detroit, which is a nonprofit organization. Now, the reason for that, and that's a really good number, is that a lot of refugees, they actually don't have jobs waiting for them. A lot of them choose to create their own businesses. Who knew that they would be more entrepreneurial, right? And I've got more examples of that. Now, some of those who did open their own businesses are people like Jerry Yang. Now, he started a little known company called Yahoo. Or what about Sergey Brin, who also started a very small tech company called Google, and Andrew Grove, who fled Hungary at the age of 20, and who built the modern semiconductor industry at Intel. Semiconductors, kind of important. And of course, there's the often cited Steve Jobs' dad, who, if Kelly had been in charge, well, then he would have been sent back to Syria, and we wouldn't actually have Apple. So no iPhones, no iPods, iMacs, whatever, right? No Apple, be gone. Now, according to Michael Clemens, senior fellow who leads the Migration and Development Initiative at the Center for Global Development, says, quote, "There's just not any credible research that I know of in the medium and long term that refugees are anything but a hugely profitable investment. Now, of course, upfront costs, getting them settled, and then once they're settled and able to stand on their own, they create their own businesses and actually help the economy, create jobs, pay taxes, all that stuff, and actually enrich the nation. That's why it's an investment. That's why they're good for the economy. Now, of course, there's a lot of fake research out there from, or at least presented by Breitbart, right-wing think tanks, that says, no, that's not true. All refugees are actually terrible. And all they do is go and cause crime, and they're trying to do Sharia law, no-go zones, all that stuff. That's bullshit. That's not actually true. The truth is like, yes, there are, look, refugees are people, right? There are good people, there are bad people, right? There are good refugees, there are bad refugees. And that's why we vet them. And even then, since they are human beings, sometimes human beings do terrible things. That doesn't mean that we kick them all out or we keep them all out. I mean, we shouldn't keep them all out unless that there's a really good reason. Either we can't take care of them, of course, or maybe while we're doing the vetting process, we find something suspicious. And I've got no problem with that. But the point is that the benefits of taking in people usually outweigh the bad that sometimes goes along with taking them in. But see, if you're John Kelly or Steve Bannon, or you're a racist and you're afraid of the so-called browning of America, then of course you're going to ignore all those studies, and you're just going to be like, no, I want to keep everybody else out unless they're white and European. Hey, if you're a racist and you believe that, then just call yourself what you are. I don't quite understand this pushback from people who clearly believe in racist ideology saying, hey, stop, we're not racist. No, own it. You might as well. I mean, that's a racist ideology. If you don't want brown people to come into America and you think white people are superior to the brown people, and that's why you don't want that, then just admit that you're a racist. I mean, it's really, really easy. If you only want white European people to come over to America and to be part of America, to be able to immigrate and or be refugees, then just say it. Say what you are. Admit it. You're a racist. You'll feel better. Now, White House staffers also told the Times that Kelly's comment is an example of the similarities with Donald Trump. Juliette Kayyem, a former Assistant Homeland Security Secretary in the Obama administration, said, quote, Kelly has been an enabler of Trump's mission. Judge him that way. And unfortunately, that's incredibly true. He has been an enabler of Trump's mission. Sure, he has maybe stopped him from doing some of the stupidest things. It's the things that really just make him look bad. But in reality, he's also helping with Trump's agenda. And so that's something that, of course, needs to be pointed out and talked about. Now, John Kelly, I mean, this shows that John Kelly is certainly not as dumb as Trump. Obviously, he's a very, very smart person. But the thing that he does have in common with Trump is his inherent cruelty towards people who do not look like him. Okay. Now, speaking of immigration. Now, ICE has reportedly detained 10-year-old girl with cerebral palsy after she received emergency service in Texas. Now, according to the New York Times, the girl was detained by authorities after an ambulance in which she was riding passed through a Border Patrol checkpoint. Now, border agents stopped this vehicle and then reportedly followed the ambulance all the way to the hospital where the young girl underwent emergency gallbladder surgery. While this was going on, the ICE agents apparently waited outside the girl's room until she was released from the facility. Once released, the girl was taken to a facility in San Antonio for migrant children who come to the U.S. alone. Now, the girl, Rosa Maria Hernandez, was brought to the United States from Mexico when she was just 3 months old and was living in Laredo, Texas. So she would possibly be a dreamer under that, of course, the circumstances that she was brought to America. Again, 3 months old, wasn't her choice. Her parents brought her to give her a better life. She does have a disability, so maybe they thought that they could actually get more help and actually do better in America. That's not a bad thing. Now, both her and her parents are undocumented immigrants. So, hey, man, wow, way to go. Way to get 'em, ICE. You really are making us safer, man. That 10-year-old with the disability that could have been the next Bin Laden. You got to be kidding me. Look, this is gross, right? Staking out a hospital for 10 days to pick up a little girl with a disability who had just undergone surgery is pretty low even for ICE. Now, I know some people might be complaining more about the idea that, oh, you know what, when she was at the hospital, she was using taxpayer money to get free medical care. Oh my God, how terrible. Some of our tax money went to save a life. Terrible, terrible. Oh, but see, it's not about the fact that it saved a life. It's the fact that it saved the life of one of those people, the illegals, right? Now, you guys say all lives matter, but, well, when it comes to actually all lives actually mattering, like the life of this little girl, well, it doesn't seem to matter all that much at all to you. If you're one of them, as I said, if you're a Mexican, if you're brown, then your life doesn't matter to these people. You know, if it costs you an extra buck, you're not interested. You'll just let them die. That's the position, man. And look, if you do think that way, if you agree with all that stuff and you're like, yeah, my tax money should not go to anybody who is undocumented to get life-saving medical care, well, then congratulations, you're a piece of shit. Now, the agents apparently, according to Rosa Maria's cousin, who was in the girl's ambulance and is a U.S. citizen, she is actually legal, the agents tried to convince the family to have the girl taken to a hospital in Mexico. Now, I don't know how far out of the way a Mexican hospital would have been, but usually when it's an emergency, you need emergency surgery, you're going to want to go to the closest hospital to get that so you can save your life or save that person's life. And here the agent's going, you know what? I know this is an emergency. I know it's life-saving, but you should go to Mexico. Seriously? That's what we're doing here. That's what these ICE agents are all about. Now, the mother, Philippa de la Cruz, told the New York Times, quote, "I'm a mother. All I wanted was for her to get the surgery that she needed. Never crossed my mind that any of what is happening right now could happen. When you're a mother, all you care about is your child." Now, by the way, they took the child away from the parents. So now the little girl who's recovering, who has a disability, is now away from the parents. They're literally breaking up families. This is disastrous. This is a sick story. Now, look, no one in that position, in the position of the mother, in the position of the father, would have done anything differently if it was their child. Of course, they would have gone to that hospital and not gone to a hospital in Mexico, which is what the agents wanted them to do. And they're just like, hey, man, go to Mexico. And by the way, don't come back. And that was the ultimate goal here. And in Trump's America, I mean, there is no too low for them now. Now, I know the response that I'm going to get from some people. Hey, man, look, don't blame the ICE agents. They're just following the law. Okay, well, you're saying that they didn't have anything better to do than to go after a 10-year-old girl? They didn't actually have any criminal illegal aliens to go after? This girl's 10 years old with disability. Is she a threat? No, of course not. Can you use human judgment and say, like, man, we should go after this, but you know what? We've actually got real criminals to go bust. No, of course not. You can't use human judgment today. No, the whole point, like the whole attitude of these people are like, oh, she's an illegal. We've got to kick out all the illegals. Herp, derp, derp, fucking MAGA. And what do you think you're actually doing for the country when you hold that position? Do you think you're actually defending America? You think you're standing up for the rule of law? No, you're not. Even our own president doesn't even respect the rule of law. And I can guarantee that most people who try to hold that up don't either. For example, when Kim Davis wasn't respecting the law, she wasn't following the law. She wasn't doing her job. She wasn't respecting the rule of law by refusing to marry gay people, which was under the law. Conservatives cheered. Oh my God, what a hero Kim Davis is, disrespecting the law, not following that law. Now, how many times have right-wing pundits have actually called on people to not follow the laws that they don't agree with? There's an entire right-wing movement called Sovereign Citizen, which basically is like, hey man, laws don't apply to me. What about the rule of law? What about the rule of law? The hypocrisy knows no bounds with these people, okay? And look, I understand ICE agents, they got a job to do. I get it. But look, other than being here illegally, what has this family actually done? They're not the criminal aliens, right? They're not the bad hombres. The kid doesn't deserve to die because of their legal status. And I'm sorry. Again, if you believe that, no, illegals, they shouldn't be able to get medical care here. They should be able to die. If they don't make it to Mexico, sad day for them. Then you really can't call yourself pro-life. And you really can't say all lives matter. Now, can you? And look at what message that this whole thing sends, too. If you have a medical emergency and you're undocumented, well, if you go to the hospital, ICE will get you. They'll take you away and they'll drop you off in Mexico. They do not want undocumented immigrants to get medical treatment. They want to kick them out. That's not a Christian position. It's not a pro-life position. And it shouldn't be an American position. In America, we're supposed to help people no matter who you are. We're supposed to be the good guys. We're not the good guys here. And maybe I'm just too much of a bleeding heart liberal. Maybe I'm too much of an idealist. Maybe I actually believe too much in America, in this country, in the people in this country. Maybe I actually believe that there are so many good people out here that outweigh the bad. And that we're far more generous than we actually are. And believe in our own principles far more than we actually do. Maybe. But I still think that we're better than this. I still think we're better than this. And now look, the overall issue here, we've got to change our immigration laws. Okay, there's 11 million undocumented immigrants, as conservatives love to point out, right? It's not feasible that we can kick them all out. All $11 million, or 11 million people, right? Not without massive amounts of spending to do that. And of course, a massive amount of damage to our economy, especially in the agricultural industry. But what we can do is that we can go through and we can give the good ones a chance to have citizenship through a pathway to citizenship. I mean, look, undocumented immigrants, they already put money into the economy, okay? They pay taxes, but they get nothing in return. This is a system that needs to be fixed. It's unsustainable the way that it is, and we need massive immigration reform. Now, if you want to get tough and deport all the bad hombres, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. But going after people, especially, children, getting surgery and tracking them down, that's not what we should do. That's not what we should be going after. That's not what we should be doing in America. Get rid of the bad ones. That's fine. But let's give the good ones, let's give everyone a chance. That's all that we're asking. Jesus. Okay. Let me take a quick 1 minute break and we'll come back. We got more stories for you. We got a huge sexual assault story coming up. And then we've got Lindsey Graham being honest Republican. And then we've got the future of media, and it looks grim. Coming back right after the break. Everybody, welcome to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. I want to remind everybody to please like and share this stream. That helps us a lot. We do have a super chat that I want to read. This is from Bernard Foster. He says that millennials will soon rule the world. Yes. Thank you, Bernard, for using the super chat, and thank you for your comment as well. We will indeed rule. Just wait. All right. So now let's get to the disastrous news here. And this is sexual assault. Now, following the allegations of sexual assault on Harvey Weinstein, more and more women are now speaking out and pointing the finger at some very powerful people. The newest allegations are now against veteran journalist Mark Halperin. Color me surprised, man. I am actually super surprised about this. Now, according to CNN, 5 women shared their accounts with the news agency. And others aware also corroborated their stories. And according to them, Halperin had allegedly sexually harassed them while he was at ABC News. So that was over 10 years ago. Let's go through some of the stories here. According to CNN, the stories of harassment range in nature from propositioning employees for sex to kissing and grabbing one's breasts against her will. 3 of the women who spoke to CNN described Halperin as, quote, without consent, pressing an erection against their bodies while he was clothed. I'll give you more details of those accounts. Now, Halperin, of course, denies doing that. He says, oh, no, I never grabbed any boobs, and then I never pressed my, erection against these 3 women. That's not true. But, look, what they describe is obviously super inappropriate behavior. You don't get to do that, right? So let's get into the details, right? Now, the first woman told CNN that back in the early 2000s, she was invited to visit Halperin's office. That's back when he was political director at ABC News. Now, he's like, okay, come upstairs, come to my office, and we'll have a soda. We'll have a soda. And he said that while she was, and she said that while she was there, he forcibly kissed her and then pressed his genitals against her body. She said, quote, I went up to have a soda and talk, and he just kissed me and grabbed my boobs. I just froze. I didn't know what to do. Well, obviously, that's a very difficult situation. A lot of people wouldn't know what to do. Now, when she did make her way out of his office, the woman told a friend at ABC News what had happened. That friend then told CNN that she remembered the woman telling her about the incident and seeing her visibly shaken. So that's the first one. The second woman is another former ABC News employee, described a similar experience in his office during the 2004 campaign cycle. The woman said that she was around 25 years old then and wanted to be a, quote, campaign off-air. ABC News is termed for one of the reporters who travel embedded with presidential campaigns. Now, the person who was in charge of that is Mark Halperin. So she's like, okay, I want this job, so I'm going to reach out to Mark and see what he says. Now, she told CNN, quote, the first meeting I ever had with him was in his office, and he just came up from behind. I was sitting in a chair from across his desk, and he came up behind me, and while clothed, he pressed his body on mine, his penis on my shoulder. Oof. I was obviously completely shocked, she said. I can't even remember how I got out of there, but I got out of there, and I was freaked out by that whole experience. Given I was so young and new, I wasn't sure if that was the sort of thing that was expected of you if you wanted something from a male figure in news. Damn. Now that quote right there is amazing, because it really kind of shows you like the power dynamic, right? Having the thought of, hey, am I supposed to let him do that? Like, I want this job. Is that part of what I have to do for the job? It's something that I don't think a lot of people, a lot of dudes think about. But I think it is something on the mind of a lot of women. Am I going to get the job or not? If I don't sleep with him, if I rebuff him, how does that hurt my career? This is unfortunately the reality of a lot of women in the workplace. a lot of women in not only acting, Hollywood, but in news, and I think in a lot of workplaces as well, in other industries. Now, unlike Roger Ailes, apparently he at least didn't try to make that part of the job. None of the women have said that he ever promised anything in exchange for sex or suggested that he would retaliate if he didn't get it. Now, he's still a creep, don't get me wrong, but he's still not quite on the creepiness level of Bill O'Reilly or Roger Ailes, who actually did go after women who, wouldn't sleep with him or them. And, of course, Ailes would say that, hey, man, if you don't sleep with me, you're both not going to get the job, and you're not going to get any job anywhere. And also Harvey Weinstein as well. Because he's like, hey, I'm a powerful person. If you want a job, I can get you a job, but you got to do this to me first. I mean, there was another actress that said, hey, man, where he said that, and let me see if I can remember it. We're going to go to a party, and I'm going to introduce you to the people that you're going to sleep with to get a job. But first, I have to test to see how good you are. That's Harvey Weinstein. So that's disgusting. So Weinstein, Ailes, O'Reilly are super disgusting. Halperin also disgusting, but not quite on that level. Now, the woman Halperin apparently supposedly didn't give up. The woman said that Halperin continued to express a sexual desire for her in subsequent visits, despite being rebuffed. She said, it was more like him coming up too close to me and sort of along the lines of hugging me, she explained. She also alleged that Halperin propositioned her for sex in the campaign trail. He would say, hey, why don't you meet me upstairs? She said, that's not a good idea, and he would push the request further. Eventually, I would just ignore him and go about my business. Now, that's the second woman. Here's the third. Now, this was also a former ABC News employee, so you can see a pattern emerging. Hey, I'm just going to go after the co-workers that work under me. Now, she said that she was on the road with Halperin when he propositioned her. She said, I excused myself to go to the bathroom, and he was standing there when I opened the door, propositioning me to go into the other bathroom to do something. We all know what that is. She said, it freaked me out. I came out of the living room, and he was just standing there, like almost blocking the door. A fourth woman who worked with Halperin and was junior to him told CNN that he once asked her late at night on the campaign trail to go up to his room with him, and she believed him to be propositioning her. She declined, and then there was a fifth who spoke to CNN, who was not an ABC News employee at the time, and said that she was not comfortable sharing specifics of her story for publication, but said that Halperin, while clothed, placed his erect penis against her body without her consent. So it's a pretty simple story, or pretty much the same story here. Mostly going after coworkers, doing the same kind of thing, propositioning. Every once in a while, he tries to press his dick up against you. So that's, at least in one case, actually doing sexual assault. Now, Halperin told CNN in the statement, quote, during this period, I did pursue relationships with women that I worked with, including some junior to me. I now understand from these accounts that my behavior was inappropriate and caused others pain. For that, I am deeply sorry, and I apologize. Well, look, he also says, under the circumstances, I'm going to take a step back from my day-to-day work while I properly deal with the situation. As I said, Halperin denies groping as well as pressing his penis into women's bodies without consent, which is sexual assault. So basically all he's doing is like, oh, I hit on the girl, I did some propositioning. Yeah, it wasn't exactly, I shouldn't have done that. I realize now that it was harming them. You didn't get it when they actually kept turning you down? Like, no, I'm not interested. Please stop. You didn't get that the first time. Ridiculous, right? No, it's sort of a non-apology apology. In my view, not good enough, not nearly good enough. Now, MSNBC, because he's a panelist, regular panelist on Morning Joe, MSNBC put out the statement saying, we find the story and allegations very, very troubling. Mark Halperin is leaving his role as a contributor until the questions around his past conduct are fully understood. Now, ABC News also chimed in and said Mark left ABC News over a decade ago and no complaints were filed during his tenure. However, the women speaking to CNN said that they did not report Halperin's behavior to management either because they feared retribution because he was very powerful or because they were embarrassed. In some cases, the fear of him and the sway he holds remain to this day. The woman in the first account, however, said that she told a mentor at ABC News who she wanted to escalate the issue to management, or who said he wanted to escalate the issue to management, but it is unclear if it ever occurred. I don't think so, or else ABC would have actually said something or had done something. My guess is rug. Oh, we're sweeping. So we're not going to do anything about it because Halperin is one of our greatest journalists. Got to protect him, right? Now, CNN's investigation found that Halperin allegedly exhibited this type of behavior from the 90s to the mid-2000s. However, CNN has not learned of any incidents after Halperin left ABC News. So here's the thing about that. So there are apparently no incidents after the mid-2000s, after he left ABC News. Now, maybe he cleaned up his act afterwards. Okay, great. Or maybe this is going to be another drip, drip, drip situation. I mean, it's happened before. It could be another Cosby situation like, yeah, once one comes out or two comes out, 5, here comes the rest. Or maybe he did, like I said, stop with 5 and said, hey, yeah, that's good enough. I don't know. But the bigger picture here is not so much in the numbers, is that here's another example of a powerful person taking advantage of that power to try and get what he wanted in return, and that, of course, was sex. It's the same old story. The difference here is that these women, and a lot of women across the world, have had enough. I mean, again, Cosby, Ailes, O'Reilly, Weinstein, now even George H.W. Bush has been accused of sexual harassment and assault. I mean, George H.W. Bush, I think it was earlier today, he's like, yeah, I did grow up an actress. Sorry about that. That was a while ago, but she didn't understand my humor. So it was one of those apology, non-apology kind of apologies. So nonetheless, the lid is now off. Women are saying, okay, we've had enough. We're going to come out. We're actually going to, if you do that, or if you had done that to me, now's the time to come out and break the silence. Because this has to stop. And the American people, like I said, we should have enough as well. And we should be behind these people that are just trying to hold people in power accountable. Because it's about, the whole thing is about power. It's about people exerting their power over other people who are less powerful than they are, who can't retaliate. And it's about time that we start giving the power back to regular people so that they don't get abused in this kind of system. And so, yes, let's continue to hold people accountable. Let's do investigations. Let's find out the truth. And let's actually believe women when they say these things and empower them to come out and share their experiences. That's a good thing, and that will only lead to more people actually getting some sort of justice. And that's what it's all about. Okay. All right. So let's go to Lindsey Graham. Now, Lindsey Graham wants you to know that he is worried about Donald Trump, and he wants to do something about him, but only after he gets his tax cuts. Now, this comes after Arizona Senator Jeff Flake had delivered a speech under the Senate floor against Donald Trump. He said, "We must never meekly accept the daily sundering of our country, the personal attacks, the threats against principles, freedoms, and institutions, the flagrant disregard for truth or decency, the reckless provocations, etc., etc." Like I said, it was a good speech. And then, of course, afterwards, Bob Corker also made a speech, and he said, among other things, we're on the path of World War II or World War III, sorry, and that look, I wouldn't get Trump elected again. I wouldn't support him again. He's actually a danger to the country, all that stuff. So it's great speeches, great, people to see people speaking out. And to be honest, look, a lot of Republicans agree with Corker and Flake. Trump is unhinged. But to be fair, those two only spoke up because they were not running for re-election. And to be honest, they would get crushed by Steve Bannon's primary challenges. Because it turns out the Republican voting base loves Trump. A new poll out has Republicans having an 83% approval rating of Donald Trump. They're behind him. The GOP is now the Trump party. So even though a lot of these politicians in office don't agree with, well, they do agree with him on policy, and they do agree with him on, the racism and stuff, but they don't agree with how he's actually doing this. The way that he's conducting himself, because it makes the rest of them look bad. So that's why you have Corker and Flake. They're not as monstrous as Donald Trump, but they're still pretty monstrous. Okay. And they knew they were going to lose, so they go out and they speak out against Trump. Now, there's another reason that other Republicans will not speak out against Trump, and it's because they want their tax cuts. And of course, this is an issue of follow the money. And here is Lindsey Graham actually going out and admitting it. He says that he says that I like him a lot. When asked about Flake's speech, I think it's a loss to the Senate. I share some of his concerns about what the president said about the way he behaves. So that's Graham. Okay. So you agree that he's a danger to the Republic. I mean, Flake spelled it out. He was correct in his speech. This is not normal. This should not be normal. So what are you going to do about it? Nothing. Graham is going to take the coward's way out. He says, the election is over. I'm focused on results, and that's why I'm here. I'd rather not be a constant critic. I'll stand up when I need to, but I'm trying to get taxes cut. Yeah, I mean, I'll stand up, but not until we get a tax cut. No. If you're going to stand up when you're needed, then you would stand up already, because you're needed now. And Donald Trump has flouted the rule of law more than once. Constitutional crises, already done, right? And any day, some of his tweets or his erratic behavior could land us into a conflict. Now's the time to stand up. But no. We just need to hold on because there are tax cuts on the line. Our donors are going to save millions of dollars. That's actually who we work for. We don't work for the country. No. I mean, sure, we care about America. We don't want it to fall apart. But at the same time, tax cuts. How craven are these Republican politicians? Now, imagine if the Democratic president did half the shit that Trump is. Say we elected Hillary and she turned out to be, we're at war with, we're going to war with Russia and we're doing all these terrible things, more fracking, giant tax cuts for the rich as well, for the bankers. Well, okay. Do you think that if she was out of control Hillary, I would hope that the Democrats would actually be like, okay, you're out of control. Like, we got to rein you in. We got to rein this person in. I know I'd be the first person to go, we got to get rid of her. We got to do something. Now, again, I don't have a lot of faith in Democrats, but you see, but I can't quite see them stooping this low if Hillary was exactly the kind of train wreck that Donald Trump is. I'm just saying. Now that Graham has a chance to get tax cuts, and again, Donald Trump's a danger, right? But now that he's got a chance to get those tax cuts for the rich donors, and as well as get rid of the ACA, which is also a giant tax cut for the rich donors, now he suddenly wants to be really super soft, playing patty cakes with Trump. He just says, and look how he describes the president, right? He says that, quote, he's a deal maker, and he's extremely flexible. Just keep talking to him. Keep him close. Oh, so that's why you went golfing with him. Oh, that makes sense. So basically, now that we're going to get what we want from him, policy-wise, we don't care about telling the truth. We don't care about actually stopping him. They all think he's dangerous, but in the end, their greed is endless. And ironically, that seems to trump everything else. Now, if you've been wondering why more Republicans are not speaking out, well, this is one of the reasons why. And the other reason is on most of the stuff that he does, they actually agree with him. Okay. Moving on. One more story for you guys, and it's a disaster that is the FCC. Oops. Now, next month, the Federal Communications Commission, headed by Ajit Pai, will vote on a sweeping measure to deregulate the media. Now, the proposal would essentially eliminate the ban on owning both a newspaper and a TV station in a market, according to FCC Chairman Ajit Pai's opening statement at a congressional hearing. Now, it would also make it possible for the agency to allow a company to own more than one of the top 4 television stations in one market, which is now currently prohibited under current rules. Now, the proposal also eliminates other media rules, including cross-ownership regulations for both radio and television stations. So basically what this is this is a giant media deregulation package, which would equal more media consolidation. Now, if the FCC passes this, it's pretty much over. Prepare for 2, maybe 3 companies owning all your media. And look, we're almost at that point anyway. We've got about, 5, maybe 6 companies at most owning most of our media right now. Cut that down by at least half. So that will control the stuff that you see on television. Wonderful. But hey, man, we can just go online, right? Well, they're going after net neutrality as well. That means that these same gigantic companies will both be able to control your programming. And if you are on the internet and you trust the internet, you watch shows like ours, the Young Turks, or, Secular Talk, Humanist Report, well, they're going to slow down websites that they don't agree with. So they can slow down the shows that are online that are not part of their company, and then they will control the stuff that you see on television, so you essentially can't get away from them. That's a disaster. That is, of course, unless people online can pay their exorbitant tolls. Now, like I said, we already have a huge amount of media consolidation. These measures, if passed, will make it so much worse. And, of course, I have to give a thanks to Bill Clinton for that one, for the Telecommunications Act. And look, and going back to that, right? Now, do you guys know what happened to radio when Clinton passed the Telecommunications Act, 1996? Well, it turns out that when they deregulated, all these companies, or very few companies, I should say, bought up all these different radio stations and decided, hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put a lot of right-wing radio all over the country, right? We're going to saturate the market with Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck, and we're going to see what happens. So a lot of people in a lot of areas had nothing to choose from but massively right-wing radio playing propaganda. Now, I think that's part of what's led up to our current situation, with a lot of Republicans no longer living in the same kind of world populated by facts. This is why a lot of facts are now considered by them to be fake news. I mean, and I'm not the only one saying this. I have a very conservative person who's also said this, who's been sounding the alarm on this for a long time. This is Charlie Sykes. He's a former conservative talk show host, and he's talked about how the right wing has essentially lost their minds. He's writing a book, How the Right Lost Their Minds. He's basically saying that these people, they live in a bubble of propaganda, and if you're not echoing that propaganda as a conservative host, and if you're pushing back against, for example, a lot of the conspiracy theories on the right, then your audience basically leaves you, because that's what they want to hear. And it's turned into a very tribal mentality where, hey man, you know what? My tribe is the only tribe that's right. Everybody else who is on the other side, everything that they say is 100% wrong. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if they say the sky is blue. No, it's actually purple. So, in an op-ed, Sykes wrote that we had succeeded in persuading our audiences to ignore and discount any information from mainstream media. Over time, we'd succeeded in delegitimizing the media altogether. All the normal guideposts were down. The referees discredited. And so, while he acknowledged that part of where we got where we're at is, look, what we do is we call out bias in the media. Now, is there a bias in the media? Absolutely. He said that it's a target-rich environment, right? Hey, we call out biased media all the time. I think the media has an establishment bias, a corporate bias. And that would be more conservative, I think, but also neoliberal bias. So we're right about that, and that's perfectly fine. But it went way, way further than that, saying that everything that the media says is 100% wrong. No. Like, I may call out mainstream media, corporate media like the New York Times, Washington Post, for the stuff they do, like the 16 hit pieces on Bernie Sanders in 16 hours. It's ridiculous, right? But then there's actually pieces that they do that are actually factual, and they're good pieces. So there's opinion news, and then there's actually straight news that they actually talk about facts. And I think, especially on the right, they're like, no, even the factual pieces that aren't supposed to have a bias and it's against us. It's fake news. They're making stuff up. So, you know, only the stuff that we're saying, even if it's a crazy conspiracy theory, is the truth. Wonderful. Now, again, yes, the media has a bias, right? Doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is, again, what the right did. Now, and that's one of the reasons that I think that they're so insane at this point. And thanks to media consolidation, those insane voices are all that people hear. And now, the same problem that we have with right-wing radio that has led up to this problem, now we're going to end up having with television. Because here comes Sinclair Media. Now, Sinclair Media already owns a lot of local media stations. They are deeply, deeply right-wing. And now they're merging with, or attempting to merge with, Tribune, which will give them unprecedented coverage across a great majority of American homes. So now they're going to be on your TV, on your local station, you know, prepare for it, right? Now, Sinclair, the problem with that is that they will put propaganda into their straight news broadcasts. I mean, you'll see segments with Boris Epstein. This is a guy who's a huge, huge Trump guy, and basically puts out, like I said, bullshit propaganda right into their daily broadcast. In fact, that's mandated from the company. You have to run this segment. It's grotesque. Now, with these TV rules removed, now the stage is set for Sinclair Media to basically get their takeover of television. And now with their plans for net neutrality on the FCC's and Ajit Pai's plans, online media, I don't think will be able to compete with that. So we're looking at nothing short of a complete takeover of the media by the conservative right wing. And it's all made possible thanks to deregulation. This is what happens when you put the right wing and corporate Democrats in charge. You end up getting massive deregulation that essentially destroys all truth in the media and has some very, I guess, either unintended consequences or very much intended consequences. Either way, it's not looking good. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today. We'll be back with another great Friday show tomorrow. Stay tuned here, or I should say tune in tomorrow, right here, 3 p.m. Eastern on TYT Nation. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you haven't already, please share the stream or share the videos later on when they get put up on our YouTube channel. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody at home for watching. Thanks for the super chats. And just thank you for your support. Your viewership means a lot. All right. I'm out of here. Love you guys. See you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.